We're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Astro Imaging channel. Last week we went over star masks in PixInsight, and this week we're going over masks in Photoshop. So Josh is actually going to give a presentation today, and we'll see a little bit of the contrast of the two. As always, you can see a recording of this on YouTube. So if you want to follow along, that might be a good way to do it. The resolution is also a little bit better on YouTube, so that could help. But as for now, I'm just going to hand it right over to Josh, and you can start.
Okay. So today we are going to work on some masks in Photoshop, and it's going to work on processing the dumbbell nebula. So what I'm going to do here is make sure that you guys can actually see what I'm trying to share here. Right now, do you see the video of the dumbbell nebula?
I actually don't see the video of the dumbbell nebula.
Let's see if we can see it while it's playing now.
I still don't. Is there a full screen mode, perhaps?
Yes, I'm going to do that now. If we can't do this, I'll go into Photoshop and use that.
We're seeing the video now.
Okay.
But I don't hear you. I don't know if you're talking, but I don't hear you. Josh, I still don't hear you. I don't know if you... Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't hear him either.
I do see his sound thing over there, and I don't know. I don't quite know what that means. Josh, can you hear us? I see. I'm going to share the controls with Josh. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that's what he was looking for. It appears to me that he's debugging that stuff, so I'm going to let him go for a little bit.
It looks as if he's dropped off.
I still see him right there. I still see him in the call. His sound, he's having trouble with his sound. This is his screen we're looking at, so we're seeing him debug it. If I'm trying to think how I can help him out. We did just hear him. Is that Josh? Do you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
I hear you. Yeah.
There we go. Lots of debugging tonight. Sorry about that. Let's see if you're able to hear me and see the full-size video now. I'm going to go to full screen, and I'm going to try and play this. Are you able to hear this now?
I can hear you talking now. But I don't know. I don't know if you're talking now. Are you still there?
I am.
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear the video volume or audio?
Oh no, you know what? I don't hear any audio on the video.
Okay. I'll go ahead and play it, and I'll just kind of narrate over it then.
Sounds good. Can you try making the entire window full screen? Because if it's streaming a video of me behind the video, then
Yes.
yeah. Oh, it's the same.
Yeah. Back to it.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll debug another time. I'll go back and start working on the Photoshop document.
All right.
All right. Are you able to hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to work on the dumbbell nebula tonight, and we'll go through and do as many different kinds of actual masks as we can. And we'll start off by doing a couple star masks to show what I like to do with those. So as long as you can actually see my screen, I'm going to do a couple quick stretches here so that it's more visible. And I'm going to start off by creating a star mask on the first layer of my dumbbell nebula. Typically what happens if you stretch your image too much, your stars will start getting bloating. They'll start getting really bright in the middle, and you'll lose all your color. If you can see here, the star is turning white in a hurry. And we don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is come back here and go back to my first step, and I'm going to make a new layer. And you can see right now that there's a little bit of blue around these stars, a little bit of red. A lot of the smaller stars still have red in them, and we don't want to lose the color in the stars. And we also want them to stay nice and compact. So before I run through this, I'm just going to run in HLVG. And what I'm going to do for the first mask is do a couple of levels adjustments to bring out a little more of the detail and to bring out a little more of the color. And usually I'll actually do the stretching before I apply the mask, because I will use the actual stretched image to apply my mask. You can see here that beforehand and then afterhand, before the stars were under pretty good control, and we didn't do any hard stretching, but you see there starts to be some big halos around the stars. They get brighter in the middle, and we want to avoid that. So one way to make that mask that we'll start with is to use the color range selection. So we'll come up to select, and we'll go to color range, and to pick what we want out of this, we're going to pick just a star with the eyedropper, the left eyedropper, and you see if you pick a really bright star and then slide your fuzziness slider all the way to the top, then you're not going to get very many stars in there. So what you can do is go to the middle eyedropper with the plus button, and you look for a little bit dimmer star. And typically you want it to be a little bit of a smaller star as well, and then you see once you select that smaller star, everything else comes up. So now we can slide that fuzzy factor back down a little bit, and we're going to hit OK. And you can see what happened was it automatically selected the brighter stars, and also selected some of the area around the Dumbbell Nebula. For now, we do not want the area around the Dumbbell Nebula selected because we are actually trying to stretch that. So I'm going to pick my lasso tool, and I'm going to hit the Alt key, and as I'm holding it down, I'm going to come around and lasso around the part in the nebula that was actually selected. And so that deselects it. So now what I want to do is keep from getting a hard line around these stars. And to do that, I'm going to go to Select and Modify and Expand. And typically for stars, I'll expand them by about 3 pixels. As you can see, this will make your selection go all the way outside of the halo around the stars. And it's still going to be a hard line there, although it includes all the stars. To make it a softer line, I'm going to feather it. And usually I'll feather it by the same amount, 2 to 3 pixels. And you can see it rounds them off a little bit better, but it still keeps them fully selected. So now we're going to go over to our Layer tab. We're going to use the Layer tab to create a layer mask, and we're going to hide the selection. Now I can show you the mask itself. We can zoom in and look at the mask, and you see where all the stars are now little black smudges, which is what we want, so that way we are not actually stretching the stars too much. Also, we are able to stretch the dumbbell pretty well, but you see what happens here is there's a little bit of a bright spot in the middle of the dumbbell that is because when you look at the layer mask, there's a little bit of a kind of remaining selection within the Dumbbell Nebula, and we don't want that in there. So I'm going to, within the layer mask, I'm going to select this region where the Dumbbell Nebula is with my lasso tool. I'll feather that again and use this time a larger feather, probably like 15 pixels. And then I'm actually going to come in and do a levels adjustment within that selection within the layer mask, and I'm going to slide the midpoint slider over to the left a good bit. And you can see that kind of region in the dumbbell that's got that fuzziness can pretty much disappear, which is what we're looking for. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to zoom out on the rest of my image, and you can see the stars are selected everywhere. But they are a little bit of a hard line, even after feathering it. So to make them a little bit softer, I'm going to put a Gaussian blur on them, and come down to noise, or sorry, to blur and Gaussian blur. And usually for stars, I like to use between 1.5 and 2. So I'll pick about 1.5, 1.6 for this one. And what it did was a pretty good job of stretching a lot of the image, but not stretching the stars way too far. You can see this star stays almost exactly the same pre and post stretch, which is what we want. And what we also want is to see more detail come out in the nebula. And it did, which is great. That's what we're looking for. One thing that you have to be a little bit careful about whenever you're stretching the nebula and you have stars within the nebula, it's a lot easier to do on something like the dumbbell because it's so small, is avoid these kind of halos around the star within the nebula. So when you have a small nebula, one good way to come in here, make sure your layer mask is still selected, but you want to be looking visibly at the picture. And I'm going to feather that. And I'm going to feather that with about a 5 pixel radius. And I'm going to actually fill that with white at about a 50% opacity. And what that did is it just got rid of that halo that's right around the dumbbell there. So that's what we were looking to do. So I'm going to flatten the image and I'm going to go on to the second mask. I can stop for a minute and make sure there's no questions before I move on to the second mask.
There haven't been any I'm sorry, hold on. No, there haven't been any questions yet. I do want to say, if there is if there are any viewers stuck in YouTube, you can try again. You have to click Join Hangout, which will be on either our page or in the invite the most recent invite that was sent. I think there might be one or two users still stuck out there. Josh, there he is. I think he got in. Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Okay. So the next mask I'm going to work on is not too dissimilar to the one that I was just working on there. And it's going to be a combination of a star and the nebula. And what happens, especially with these DSLRs, is you see this pretty high frequency noise. I think this was taken last year, and I think some people sometimes call it walking noise. It might have been before I was dithering, which would not be surprising looking at it. So I want to actually get rid of this noise. I think that it could probably handle one more stretch before we aggressively get rid of that noise. But I also like trying to hit it as soon as we create it instead of creating a ton of noise and trying to hit it all at the end. And what that does is help kind of reduce the blotchiness, or some people call it the orange peel effect. So let's go ahead and do pretty much similar to what we did last time. We're going to do a couple of small level stretches to bring out a little more detail. And that noise becomes a lot more apparent as soon as that background gets brighter, which is what we're going to be trying to get rid of. So now that the background is brighter and we brought out a little more of that nebula, we can create this mask. So very similarly to last time, we're going to do selection for the stars, and this time we're going to actually up that fuzziness just a little bit because we want to include the dumbbell in this one. Last time we didn't want to include the dumbbell because we were trying to actually stretch more of that dumbbell out. So what we're going to do here, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but what we're going to do is create two-layer masks. I'm sorry. We're going to create one for the stars themselves, which I got ahead of myself. So first we're going to make the stars themselves like we did last time. We're going to get rid of the dumbbell nebula there. And then we're going to come in and do the same thing where we want to grow those, or expand them actually. We'll expand them by 3, and then we'll feather them by 3.
Josh, we might have lost you. I cannot hear you right now. Can anybody else?
No, his video's frozen on my side.
Alright, it appears his video is frozen.
I think he's had a problem with his internet connection. That's what it looks like.
Okay, well, why don't we open it up just right now until he jumps back in with the discussion. I'll even let me pop my video back on, and just gonna...
Mike just said he uploaded some data for us to play with, and he's just provided the link in the comments section.
Okay.
He said sorry. I don't know why he said sorry.
Oh, you know, I clicked the link and it's...
Wrong link.
Yeah, it's not letting me download it. You know what? I just saw, though, something called Showcase.
Oh, VDB 141? Cool, Mike. Thanks. I was just looking at your data. That's I'm working on that same region, but in a very wide field manner. I was about to post my luminance data up. I've got VDB 141 in the bottom left-hand corner, then NGC 7133 and some other open cluster to the top. And I wanted to ask you some stuff about that. So thanks for posting that. I'd actually like to play with that data.
Are you, Hytham, were you able to download that link? Because I'm not able to download that link.
Yes, I am. It's downloading his data right now.
Huh.
It should give you a redirect
Oh,
to.
wrong link. Hold on. Sorry, wrong link.
Oh, okay. You clicked his first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Got
second one is now correct.
Got it.
It's 200 meg in size, so that is
We'll
a
see
really
if it
sweet
messes up.
area.
We'll see if it messes up this connection.
Well, I actually messed that up.
Yeah, I posted a comment on your post, and I was wondering if you used for stretching. So
Well,
do
I
you
was trying what I learned last week, and that's where I blew it.
Oh, okay. So did you create? Because I tend to do mask stretches in between. So whenever I'm doing histogram stretches, what I do is I create a star mask in between each iteration of histo stretch. Are you trying something similar to that?
Well, I was kind of going back and forth. I made the star mask, and then I kept playing with the star mask, and I ended up kept getting artifacts, and even in the last image, although the rest of the image is great, the stars are just butchered from artifacts that I did when I was trying to do that selective stretch, and I was going back and forth with curves and the histogram with the star mask, and then a range mask too with the stars blocked out.
Yeah.
So it was really kind of a learning experience. I mean, it's really good data when you see it. If I don't post what Jimmy did with it was amazing, and what Warren did with it compared to what I did with it. So,
No, because
but I'm getting better.
No, because what I really liked about your the first one had amazing background signal and it was wicked, and I didn't even see the second one until after the fact. I went back and I just happened to check it, and yeah, your background was totally kick-ass. I like the stars. I like the star color in the second one a little bit better, actually much better. But you lost some of the background signal in the second image.
Well, I was really working on stretching the luminance more. Is mostly what I was working on, and let me tell you a good example. Here's Ken Crawford's statement about it. It looks nice, but I believe there are some hidden details to yet be revealed.
Is that from your first iteration or from the second?
First.
The first iteration. Let me see if I go back to the first one. Because the first one was certainly not as bright, but you had way more background signal. And I think that's what he may have been referring to. That would be, of course, my subjective, non-professional opinion.
Yeah, well, I think he was saying I wasn't showing a lot of the dust.
Mm-hmm.
So what I went back and tried to do was practice what I learned last week and try to stretch the luminance data quite a bit more to show a lot more of the dust in it. And playing around, I don't know, as soon as I applied the luminance, it about took every bit of color out of it there was.
So then the question that I have is, are you fully processing the luminance prior to combination with RGB, or are you doing an LRGB combine and then trying to bring it all up together?
Luminance separate.
Luminance separate? Okay. I just finished.
Warren was trying to teach me about, and I haven't gone over his tutorial yet, but something about where you, in PI, let me look at my icon, I don't know what it is. Linear fit.
Linear fit. Isn't that linear fit typically used when you're doing like a color calibration technique?
Well, I thought he was talking about to equalize all of the channel strengths.
That's what it does. Yes, it equalizes channel strength. Correct. All right.
So I would use that to match up the luminance to the other channels so that I'm not. But I don't know if that's the right place to use it or not. Like I said, it's a learning process. He's trying to get me off of Photoshop, but
I
really
don't
hard to
know.
pull myself.
I don't know about linear fit for adding the luminance back.
Not for
I'm
adding it, just
It
for
doesn't
balance.
add it. Yeah, it's a balanced utility.
no, but to balance the channels before doing the LRGB combine with the
Right.
luminance as well.
What I'm doing is doing an RGB, and then I take the RGB into Photoshop, and then because I do so many things to the luminance, I try different variations on the luminance in PI. I'll try an HDR toning on it, or I'll multi-scale, or I'll do deconvolution, all things that I'll do to the luminance that I won't do to the RGB. And so then I'll save each of those iterations of the luminance and figure out what looks the best,
Okay.
what's going to bring out the most structure and detail.
Mike, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I see Josh is back in the
Okay.
chat. Josh, you lose the internet? Oh, now hold on, we can't hear you right now.
We lost power for a few minutes.
Oh, that sucks.
Who was making fun of Pennsylvania Power the other day?
I think it was me.
Our coal runs really well most of the time.
Jeez.
All right, Josh. You can pick up wherever you left off if you're ready to go.
You might have to tell me where I left off because I was cruising through there for probably 5 or 10 minutes before I left off.
I believe you had your star mask. You're in kind of your second iteration of the star mask. You had 3 layers going.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps you.
Yeah, I think it helps. So
You had
what I
just
was gonna,
the dumbbell.
yeah, what I was going to do is create a mask to help out with actually reducing the noise in the image once it was stretched. So I did another stretch and added another star mask for the image there, and so the next image, the next layer, what I wanted to do was actually.
I'm sorry, that was
You
me.
just hit mute.
That was me.
You are so fired, Adam.
I didn't even click anything. I just hovered in it. He disappeared, but you're back on, Josh. But now, muted again.
Adam is so fired.
I think he's mute.
Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
me?
Now we can hear you.
All right. Up and running?
Yep.
All right. All right, so hopefully you can see me and see my screen and hear me. What we were saying is that I was trying to create a mask after this first star mask to actually work on reducing the noise. And so to reduce the noise, you kind of want to actually select your target, select everything but your target and the stars. Noise Ninja does a great job at reducing the noise, but it also sometimes will create these weird artifacts around your stars, and it also can start attacking the details of your nebula. So I'm going to go back to what you can see here, which is a really noisy image taken with the DSLR, and it really needs to be addressed in iterations instead of all at once. So to do that, I created another mask, and I'm going to come up here and just show you the mask that I created here. And this time, what I did was I'm going to actually just recreate this mask for you guys to make it a little bit easier to see. And what I'll do is just create a new layer so I can actually step through it. So what I'm going to do is actually take a picture of my picture and put it into my star mask.
I don't think we're gonna have much luck with the with his power outages tonight.
Yeah, we lost him again.
Mm.
I wonder if he has thunderstorms coming through.
He's in Texas, right?
No, he's Pittsburgh.
Is he? I thought he was in Texas. I apologize.
Well, he's still in. So we'll say I'm gonna say the same thing until he shows back up. We can probably just open it up to chat. I tried downloading Mike's image, and 200 megabytes later it tells me file invalid. So I'm gonna try downloading it all over again. Oh, now it's still downloading real fast.
Yeah, I've got it here. It came down just fine, so I'm gonna start playing with it in a moment. I'm just uploading my own data as well.
Yeah, Josh is out. Wow.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Looks like they got some pretty strong storms out there.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. If I just look on the radar, looks like they got some pretty strong storms.
Yeah.
So are the comments off to the side included in the YouTube?
I'm actually not sure of that. I don't remember seeing them in the YouTube. I don't think so.
What about the voice chat?
The voice chat, like us chatting right now, yes, that is.
Okay.
And if there's a lot of irrelevant stuff, I go in and clip it out. If it's difficult to clip everything out because it takes a long time to update these videos. So it's like clip out 5 minutes here and then wait 24 hours, and clip out 5 minutes here, wait 24 hours. So
Does it automatically upload as soon as it's finished?
I don't know. There's a long delay, and it says I have to wait until it finishes updating to edit stuff.
Okay.
A second time.
That's insane.
Yeah, you'd expect their computers to be working really fast. Their servers.
Yeah. Good old YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, they're good at transferring it over the pipes, but I guess not processing it in-house.
All right. Upload.
Yeah. There we go. I got Mike's stuff.
Yeah. I've got it all uploaded into Pi.
So since I missed the first part of the call, so how did Josh create a star mask? Was it using the magic wand tool, or another way?
Star mask was range selection, I believe.
The color range.
Color range, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you just remove the nebula. Well, the first time I don't think he removed the nebula, but the second time he did. Hytham, all right. If you have that Mike's data up, since we're all talking about it, you could share your screen just to give people an idea.
Yeah, sure. I can share my screen right now. I'm just doing some uploads at the same time, so if I cut out, that is... Oh, you know what? I'll just save that for a moment here, because I have similar data to Mike, except mine is wide field versus his much narrower 17-inch telescope versus my piddly little 4-inch Takahashi. So
It's only 12 and a half.
Oh, 12 and a half. My bad. Well then, then who cares, right? It's crap data. Being very sarcastic for everyone. Let me see. Let's get
I was getting a laugh on a guy posting about if he should get a Celestron Next image for guiding. He's starting out with an 8-inch SCT, and thinking he's going to be frustrated real quick.
Yeah, is the next image the one you don't need a PC for?
Yeah, I think I had one in the very beginning too. It's more of a video camera than a low-end video camera. It was like $99.
Oh yeah.
Is that their planetary imager? Next image?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The Lodestar treats me well.
Yeah, if you want to go cheap, I got a Meade DSI, the original color. Seems to do pretty well.
I've heard good things about them.
For $99, you can't really beat it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
No, I was just talking about a guy putting a post on about it's obvious he was a beginner and he was just starting out imaging, and he bought into an F10 SCT.
That's what I did.
A lot of us made this mistake.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, I bought an 11-inch, and some other forum told me it was a great idea, and they said it was amazing, blah, 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 and that was so pissed off once I
But
got
it's
it.
bigger. It's got to be better, right?
Yeah.
And then after I read Wadowski's books 6 months later, I was kicking myself in the head.
Yeah, it was shortly after I joined Cloudy Nights where I realized I made the biggest mistake in the world, and I took, I think, 3 pictures with the SCT, no darks, no biases. I just hooked it up just to see what I could do, and then I took 7 months off, bought real equipment, and man, am I ever happy I never wasted my time.
I started with a CPC, so a fork-mounted SCT, and to be honest, I don't remember anybody warning me not to buy an SCT, and I don't know if I just wasn't warned or if I just ignored all the warnings. But it seems like now if you try and start with an SCT, a lot of people will warn you, so you're kind of going against the current if you do. But I'm imaging with an SCT now, so.
Oh, it can be done once you get the skill set.
But you need a good mount, which nobody thinks about, and you need to be willing to pull out your hair a few times.
Okay, take a look at that.
Does Hytham have it on his screen?
No, he was showing you the no hair.
Oh yeah.
No, I do have. I am sharing my screen. If you guys are.
Yeah, you guys can click over to Hytham's screen.
You should be able to see Mike's luminance data.
Screen.
So this is over here on the right. This is the wide field. This is just a raw. This is just a raw file here, not stretched, but you can see how much signal from yellow skies, and here's New Mexico, and a 12.5-inch.
Well, that's a lot of hours too.
How many hours is yours?
That luminance, let's see, I did it in linear fit, so I think I had 24 15-minute frames.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that completely. Mine's only 4 hours worth. So I think mine's about 16 15-minute frames from a yellow zone.
What's the subject here? What's the target?
This is VDB 141, or the Ghost Nebula. So little ghosties here and here.
He's going to show me what the hell I did wrong when I was trying to stretch it.
So when you were working on it, let's go back to big size here, do that. And okay, this is just for the sake of time. Just want to see something quick. I would never use ABE on an image like this because there's a lot of awesome dust. And let's see. Okay, good. It didn't destroy the signal, so that wasn't a bad thing then. And that is big sized. All right, big sized it is. So what I tend to do with images like this, I start off with just a simple histogram stretch.
That's what I did.
Like that. Set it to maximum so we can see it. Bring it up. And how far can we really push this? Yeah, see, this is bloating the stars too much already. So what you can do is something like, so when I do my initial stretch, I'll typically bring it to about here as an example. So before and after, before and after.
Well, I went way beyond that on the first one.
Yeah, I tend to be pretty conservative with the first stretch, and then what I do is I manually create my star masks, and then I just go into here, use star mask. I know there are people who will say, well, you can just use a stretched mask, and then I tend to do it this way just because I prefer having a little bit more control over top of my masking. So what we can do is we could target some of the larger stars. That's what I like to do. I like to go after the larger ones, get them in my mask, and not worry so much about the smaller ones in the background, because I like making sure that the larger ones do come through so that they're the foreground, so they complement the object. And this is me practicing with other people's data because I can't do it with my undersampled stuff. So we can try this first iteration, bring this up to about 25. Let's bring the smoothness down to about 13. So that way it will still continue to stretch, so we can apply a light mask to the stars. It'll still stretch it, but just not as heavily as we would. We'll leave the shadows and the midtones here alone. Let's just go down here like that, bring it over. We'll see how well my new motherboard, processor, and RAM are working. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good.
Now, why didn't you click invert when you made it?
You don't have to. It's just totally up to you if you want to.
Oh, but the other way of inverting it up above is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because what this one will do is it's going to have the, if you do it this way, it's going to expose the stars rather than cover them up. So actually, you know what? That was a pretty good first guess. So that isn't too bad. So we've got all the nicer, larger stars in here. It covers a nice little area for the halo, so let's just apply it. That actually isn't too bad. Bring the smoothness down even further, though.
Yeah, that's where I think I was getting the artifacts from, is I didn't have smoothness right.
Yeah, that one usually takes a couple to play with. Oh, sorry. I want to bring it up. Went the wrong way. Let's go to 15.
And it was weird. It made it look like the stars were like over sharpened or something, because it like left kind of a ring around them.
Yeah, so that means you've had too much hardness. So how far, do you remember how low you went on the smoothness? If you go too low, that's when you're going to get a lot of the harder edges.
Hey, I think I was like at 10.
Yeah, 10 will create a very hard mask. But if you wanted to, what you could have done is if you notice that it was a little too hard just by looking at the mask itself, so you just apply it to the image itself, have a close look at it, and you can see the hardness there. It's just like a standard Photoshop mask with the feathering applied. And you could use convolution just to smoothen it out further if you wanted to. So you can play with the standard deviation and the shape parameter, and that'll give you an idea of how smooth the mask will end up looking. All right, let's do. All right, I'm not entirely satisfied with that mask. We would probably go down on a large scale, but let's go back to. Whoops. Not the image I wanted. There we go. So you can see how we're stretching here, and the stars are being left alone a little bit. So we'll only stretch it to this point. We can go a little bit further here. Make sure I'm not introducing any artifacts. So let's do this. Let's use a preview window. First, actually, instead of doing the whole image, let's just do it on this area right here. And apply the stretch to that. So you can see where we have a small mistake right here. So this is something that could be corrected after the fact, but because now we got this little panda eye. So we're just creating we're making this look like there's an actual, the star's blowing out the dust within VDB 141, and that's not what we want. So what, go back, we fix the mask so it's a little bit more accurate. So if we take a look at the mask itself, we can see how large of an area it's covering.
Mm-hmm.
So we can reduce that through this parameter right here is the large scale. That is one way of doing it. So by decreasing this should decrease the overall halo. So what we'll do is I can do a comparison between the two. So we'll recreate the mask. So remove this one, recreate the new mask to reduce the large scale parameter.
Hey, Hytham?
Yes.
Is it too late?
Oh, is this Josh? I didn't know you had joined back, man.
No, it's Ivor.
I'm sorry, who is it? Oh, it's Ivor. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I think I'm I was going to ask a question, but you're in the
No,
middle
no,
of
go
talking.
right on ahead. It's okay. Absolutely, ask away.
In that last screen,
This is purely open, by the way. This is not just me. This is me just having the data. So if people have other suggestions, yeah, chime on in. It's experimentation time.
in your star mass, there were a couple stars, bright stars, that were not masked out. Yeah, like in the lower left-hand corner of what
This one
you're
right down
showing
here?
right now. Yeah. Why
Mhm.
is that? Or how do you mask them? Or do you do two different masks, or
Yeah, so what you can do is you can create a number of different masks. So that's the great thing about PixInsight. You could do a combine if you want to, just a simple additive function in pixel math. So if you're looking for very specific sizes, and say you create a mask, because at times when I create my star mask, it's not going to have the exact objects. So what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll set these parameters differently. So I'll target very specific stars in the image, create one mask. I'll go back, make the adjustments, say now I want some of the other larger stars, but I didn't want to incorporate some of the smaller features. You can, and like I said, you can make adjustments here to your shadows and midtones and modify your large scale as well as playing with the noise threshold here. Those all work together to create the one mask you want. Me, if I'm just being impatient, I'll just set the scale up a little bit higher, and that will then bring these into the image itself. So that's why this one is not, sorry, say that again?
which scale?
This scale right here. So you see the one here I'm modifying?
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, so that's the one. So that one defines the size of the objects that you want. So that's why this one wasn't incorporated, because we said only modify up to about 6, and then the smooth, it didn't exactly select. So the star got a very, very light one because it was not fully represented by all the scales that it's a part of.
Gotcha.
So that determines the strength of the mask, so that your smoothness plus the number of scales that you select will determine the strength of it. So your star masks they tend to be generated, I shouldn't say they tend to be, they are generated based on the supporting scale of, the supporting number of wavelet planes or scales that the structure is found within. So the more that is in there, the harder the mask is going to be. So by going 6, we know that we can bump this one to 8 or 9, and then he'll finally be included. But looking at this new mask versus the old mask, we can see that it is taking up a smaller area. Smoothness is a little high. We could probably decrease that further by adjusting the smoothness here to about a 14, maybe a 13. Let's try that again.
Was the smoothness sort of like a feather? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
This is kind of like intuitive. It's just like when you're first learning to even do basic curves and stretches. You don't see it at first, and then once you get practice, then how you can immediately go in and say, "Oh, that's not quite right."
Yeah, that's what I love about
took a stab.
That's what I love about playing with other people's data, because everyone's data is completely different optics, different telescope, different CCD, different filters, and you learn so much. That's why I love doing this.
So basically, you just think around until you get what you want.
Yeah, so because what you want to do is you want to be very specific, right?
Sorry, hey, I got a question. So you're doing the histogram transformation and basically just you're dragging that midpoint over and creating that curve, right? So what's kind of bizarre, though, is that there's a huge amount of contrast in the dust and the background. Is that just a function of signal-to-noise ratio with that equipment?
So repose that question. I'm not sure what you...
So like I have a picture of M63, right? I think I ended up having like 5 hours of exposure. I thought it was pretty decent signal-to-noise, but it's nowhere near the signal-to-noise ratio of this. If I do a stretch, my background ends up getting a lot brighter than this background is compared to the actual nebula. So
yeah, that's your sky background.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of signal to noise, your sky background versus the actual signal. So
yeah, because you've got sky glow that's making up signal.
So we were able to reduce it here, so see how much smaller it got? So we could go even further. This is still adjustment with the mask itself, because it is absolutely not perfect. I don't want to go too far with this one here. Because I know if we go too far too low, I guess the next best thing to do is what we can do. Because I hate what that's going to end up doing. So let's close that out. Yep. Set it to 13. Set this one aside. 12, 12, 12. If it's too hard, well, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's set it to 11. Large scale 0, 12. There we go. Oh, whoops, wrong one. There we go.
Yeah, so what happened is, like I said, is when I did it wrong and then I applied that luminance, all of a sudden, as I stretched it more, all of a sudden it looked like I had over sharpened all the stars because of the ring artifacts around them. Just drove me bonkers.
So there we go. That's much better. So what we can do is, so it's going to be pretty hard on the middle and it's nice and smooth on the outer portion here. So if you guys, but here right along the edges, it's not as strong. So it's still going to allow the stars to blow gracefully with the rest of the nebula, but its only thing it's blocking now is the absolute center of the star. And that's a little bit better. The other way, there is one other way that could be done, but I think it might create some ugly artifacts now that I'm thinking about it. I've never done it, so that's why I'm purely guessing. But let's go back to our stretch here. And yeah, so you can see the center of the stars now are not as bright. So let's apply that, see how it looks. Because I hate the preview. It doesn't ever give us an accurate representation.
Right, because otherwise the center of the star becomes like a hard stop white. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. So what you could do is from there, then you can just adjust slightly with the smoothness. Because right here you can see it, how it's a hard stop white, like you said. So what we can do now is, instead of that, so instead of going back and recreating, we can do this. And this is about the center here. That.
This is a preventative measure, though, right? What you're doing is because you're going to stretch the whole thing. Like, you could go back and do like a star reduction routine, but you're not going to get the same effects.
Well, the problem with the star reduction routine, as you're stretching, you've already lost the color profile of that star, right? Because as you increase the luminance of an object, you're going to lose the color that is found within that object, or the ability to add color to that object. So what this does, it allows you to do is, rather than stretching it to the point, because the closer you get to 255, that means it's white.
Clip. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you don't want to white clip the stars, essentially. If you want to retain that really awesome star color. So if you go to the CCD forum, take a look at Mike's posting regarding VDB 141, you'll see the differences in star color between his two images. Let me see here. All right, that's actually pretty good. Let's bring this up a little bit more. All right. Don't like that.
Nathan, talk us through what you're trying to do right now.
Sorry, yeah, I'm just doing some thinking here regarding it. So what I'm doing is, because I didn't like the way the mask here had applied. So if you take a look at here, it's a little too hard for my liking. It's not a very smooth transition between the center of the star to the halo. If you take a look at these stars here, this one or this one here, they're much better representative of what I'm looking to achieve. It's a nice smooth transition from the center of the star to the outer edges. In here, what I've done is, I've inadvertently created a halo, because what we did was, with our mask, you can see how strong it is on the inside, and then how much lighter it gets to the outside. And I don't want that. So we create some artifacting within the images as we stretch. So it's a bit of experimentation as you're doing it. So you're just making the slight adjustments. So you want to get a nice, even mask rather than something that is as easily transitioning as this, or one that is you can identify as easily transitioning because you can see the border of where the hardness is. It's not very smooth and elegant. So what I'm doing is I can use the convolution tool to make an adjustment to this mask to smoothen it out further. But what I'm looking at is based on my preview versus here the total image, I'm getting two different results. So that is annoying the
So the convolution tool
heck out of me.
acts like a more complex version of smoothness. Is that right?
Yeah, you can use it that way because it also acts to blur the edges of the stars itself. Because sometimes you can introduce some really odd artifacts depending on the star profile. Because some of them, if you've seen some of my other masks where I've created and why I use the convolution, the outer edges of the star almost looks square. And not because of undersampling, it's just because of a poorly created mask. I use convolution to fix it. And I'm sure someone out there that's listening saying, well, create your mask correctly the first time and you won't have the problem.
Well, it's not easy to do when it's undersampled.
Yeah, no, not at all. And I hate working on my images for that. That's why I love it when guys like you say, here's my data. I just start smiling because your stars are all round. So much easier to make masks for, but I'm still having a little bit of trouble.
Well, and you know, that's what's amazing is everybody, you talk about how those forums are. They told me I couldn't guide the scope with a guide scope.
I know. I've always used a guide scope on mine, and as long as you lock it down, it's completely fine.
Well, but this is a 12.5-inch reflector.
Yeah, yours is. How big is your guide scope? Is it 80 millimeter? Because you use the astrophysics.
60, I think. I'm using the astrophysics setup. Yeah, that's the key to it because it's so solid.
Astrophysics, their rings are like locked down tight. I saw their
This mounts directly to the dovetail, and then the setup is.
What's the focal length on that 60 millimeter?
250 millimeters.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah.
You can get away with so much.
On the main scope.
What's the? I'm sorry.
The focal length of the main scope, like this.
About 2260, I think.
Really? that's a huge difference.
Now, what is the main scope?
It's a 12.5 AG optical IDK.
Yeah. I think premium telescope manufacturers make them rigid enough that the mirror doesn't become an issue, and it's so the mirror doesn't move on that either.
No.
So that's where the SC.
Once it was collimated, it's set. And you're not tearing it up and down, and yeah.
Yeah, I think OAG definitely for an SCT.
Oh yeah.
If you can get everything else light enough, then a guide scope will work. But it can also
it makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a little bit better. Not perfect, but
another guy is getting ready to try it with their 14.5 he ordered. I told him I thought he was kind of pushing the limit of being able to do that. I was on the bare edge of being able to do it.
So what software are you using to guide with?
Maxim.
Maxim. Okay. Is that Centroid guiding? Do you know?
Yes. I can't tell you that guiding. There's always controversy about this stuff. I can't say that Maxim is better than any other guiding program. All I know is once I had it set up, it works great, and I don't have to mess with it. I never have to recalibrate. I never have to do anything. And it's really key because it's what ties into the observatory control program.
Have you tried the 2-star guiding yet?
Multi-star, yes, I have. I don't really need it, but I did an experiment for New Mexico Skies because on some of their OAG setups, with their long focal length scopes, they're really looking forward to having that because they get into areas of the sky when a guy's got a 3600 focal length or 4000 focal length scope where stars are hard to find with OAG. And there may be like 2 or 3 faint ones, but so they're hoping that the multi-star can help them solve that.
I was wondering maybe if it would refine with a guide scope the ability, but with a combination of centroid guiding, whether it would refine the ability to resolve a star maybe better, because it is sub-pixel to begin with. I wonder how much better it gets with two star.
I can't tell you that in comparing the two, the error correction is so small to begin with that it's kind of like Jimmy has with his 16-inch RCOS. I mean, he's sitting on a with encoders on an AP600, 1600, and he still has to. His deck guiding is perfect, but he still has to send commands for RA like every 10 seconds or so for minor corrections. So I don't know that you can ever totally get away from it. So
Right,
maybe like in a case like his, it might be helpful.
Right. I mean, if you're imaging at 600 millimeter, you probably don't have to send any RA on that setup, right?
Well, it depends on how badly aligned your mount is.
Given good polar alignment.
Well, and then where you're at in the sky, I think it plays a part too.
Oh, sure. Southern low declination, you're probably going to have to make corrections.
Yeah, I will tell you that even Jimmy and I both struggle with stuff that's very strong south declination. I probably, if I'm at like, if I'm trying to shoot something in Sagittarius low, I probably have to throw out half the images. Whenever I'm due south, I don't care what I do. You want to add a refractor, anything, I just really struggle at that. Probably because of the elevation. I think the altitude of typically of the stuff I'm shooting is like 32 to 34 degrees.
Yeah, that's got to be a big difference, right?
So it struggles when it's facing due south, and I've got a good mount that's been professionally set up, and I still struggle with that. North, I have no problems.
You have the Paramount?
Yeah.
And do you? I'm trying to think, like with a Paramount. I know Astrophysics is introducing APCC, or that's the plan.
Jimmy has APCC.
Oh yeah, because that's supposed to correct for that atmospheric distortion lower on the horizon, I believe.
Yeah, that's some of the thought. I don't think that it works 100% yet. Of course, he just bought an S-Big camera with AOX, but AOX isn't working with anything yet except other than S-Big's CCD soft. So.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what happens with APCC.
Yeah, I watched it work. He was the first person to get it when they flew out there to set it up. I thought they haven't released that to the general public yet?
It's still beta test. They every time they do a new beta, they end up having to release a new chip, and I think they just want to get it right before they release it. Because they're on like I don't know. I thought they were on like I don't know. They're on a crazy number of revisions right now with the actual, not just the software.
They like to say they're in the manufacturing business, not in the repair business.
Yeah. Well, do it right the first time, and you don't have to repair it.
Yeah. Oh, we had a problem with the MX. That if you weren't using the SkyX to control the mount, but using their ASCOM driver, what would happen, there was a conflict with automation programs with the SkyX, not with the Sky 6, but with the SkyX, where the mount would, if you went into a wait mode or sleep mode while you were waiting to go flip the meridian, it would throw it all off and the mount would become totally lost. and they could not figure it out for anything. Nobody could. Bisc, I was all on them. I got to the point where I had to embarrass them at a show, you know, by talking about all the problems I was having, for their software guy to finally look through the code and figure out what was wrong. And all you had to do was go in the settings and uncheck one box, and then it would work fine.
Hey, I got a question for Hytham. In creating these star masks, I don't know if this is just a goofy question. I'm just throwing this out there. So I followed Mad Ratter's documentation on going through Decon, and he created dual masks, basically. One for the star mask, and then one to mask out, I think it was like the background of the brighter stars. So that
you mask out the background so you're not performing a deconvolution on noise.
Yeah, so I'm curious, have you ever tried to create a star mask by clipping the black point, blurring the result?
By clipping the white point?
Like, was by clipping the black point.
Like this. So you're talking about...
So yeah, he took like his original image and then clipped it so that only the brighter stars remained. I was curious if you've ever...
So he was clipping the black point, so he's doing this.
Right. So he brought it in and then all that remained. I was curious if you've ever... is it pointless to even consider using a mask?
Well, yeah, the problem for me is because if you take a look at the mask itself, and this is why I don't use this, because the great thing about the star mask itself, it's going to determine the actual structure of the star, and it's going to leave things out like, and if you take a really close look here, you can see that the star spikes are involved.
Oh, right, sure.
Yeah, so it's not as accurate, and if you wanted to eliminate them, yeah, you can just keep clipping that black point, but the problem is, now look at the size of the star, so your mask is going to be affected by doing so. So the easiest thing to do is just by using your star mask utility, and then you can make adjustments to the midtones and the shadows, and we did this with, I'm not sure if you were you here last week for this, Sean?
I keep missing like half the call. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, it's okay. Well, Mike was on last week, and we were working on one of his images, and we couldn't figure out, or he was trying to figure out how to eliminate some of the nebulous structure because it was extremely bright to the point that its signal was matching that of the surrounding stars. So it was being included as a part of the star mass that was generated. So what I like to do is, and this is, nice and simple, it's right here, but I never used it, is just simply make adjustments to the shadow and midtones as I'm making here. Now what this allows me to do is it eliminates a lot of the smaller stars in the background that are being represented in the larger scales.
Yeah, that's what I'm running into with a North American that I have with a 200mm lens. It's like it does not want to make a star mask. It wants to include everything else in there.
Yeah, that's because you're so heavily undersampled. It sucks. That's what I hate working. Everyone always told me, oh, don't worry, short focal lengths are so easy to work with. Well, that presents a whole other set of challenges that I had not anticipated, and that was the inclusion of extremely tiny stars that cannot be masked out because they will include nebulosity. So when you start doing that, you can just make adjustments here to the shadow and midtones because it's going to end up clipping this lower level signal. This is a perfect example of really low signal that is barely above the noise background, right? So when you're creating your mask, make adjustments to these two parameters here. It'll clip out the lower level stuff. That way you can create a mask that focuses more on the smaller scale structure. And this is all like we're doing here. What I'm doing is experimenting with mics. This is how I learned a lot of the stuff, is by playing with all of these features and noting the changes in them.
Right. At some point, though, right, you're going to have to say, okay, I'm going to have to call it. Like, I'm not going to get all of the tiny stars.
No, you're not going to get exactly what you want. You just try to make a mask that is optimal enough that it's going to accomplish the task that you want to accomplish in the end. I have a perfect example of that with one of my images here. So these are just JPEGs, but this is my wide field in Cepheus that I just started. So this is the first pane of 3-pane mosaic. So that was the start. This was after I extracted all the dust, so you can see that the dust is standing out much more. But what I didn't like was how the stars were detracting from the dust, so I've been playing around with star reduction techniques. Where the heck did that just go?
I'm not seeing it. Are you guys seeing what Hytham's talking about?
No,
Oh
when he
no, I'm
brought up his
sorry.
opened his other window, his screen disappeared.
I'm a tool.
Yeah.
I did that again, didn't I? All right, so
Yeah.
hang on one second.
Deja vu.
Yeah, no shite. I did it again.
Dual monitors. I do that at work all the time. I'm like, what? You can't see what I'm talking about?
Okay.
Whoa.
Can you guys see that now? Can you see this image I'm moving around?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm a dink. Sorry, I've got dual monitors here, and I was only sharing.
You guys can see it because I can't.
Yeah, I
If you
can see
hold
it.
still for a second, it'll clear up for me. Like anytime you move it, it creates artifacts for my
Okay.
people.
Well, I'll stop doing that so that way we're not. But anyway, the images. Can you see my PixInsight window again, or has that disappeared?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We'll just stick to that. But anyway, my image is so heavily undersampled, it's so hard to create. Like, Mike's smallest stars here are still nice and round. My smallest stars are perfect squares. They're just pixels. It sucks. So creating a mask for that is extremely difficult.
That's your focal length, right?
Yeah, I'm shooting at 530 millimeters versus Mike's 2000. We have the same camera. Well, we have the same chip. So
Right. It's your focal length and camera. It's your chip making them square, right?
yeah, because I'm shooting at 3.5 arc seconds per pixel, whereas I think Mike will be around 1 or close to it.
0.86.
So what is it?
0.86. Yeah.
1.5 is supposed to be like pretty smooth, round stars. Is that right?
That really depends on your seeing.
Oh well, sure. I know mine. If I shoot at f10, it's 2500 millimeter. It's like a half an arc second per pixel with my DSLR. I never get round stars. They're always blobs, but they're never square.
That's a good thing.
Hey, Mike, I just saw your comment about the best noise removal tool ever, and I'm not gonna mention the name. No. Because is this the one? Did Jimmy turn you onto this one?
Yes.
Oh, that son of a gun! Because I asked him about that. He told me, he's like, I've got the best noise removal tool on the planet, and I was like, are you willing to share? And he never responded back, and I was like, all right, cool. I guess that's a no.
Okay, well, now you just got me in trouble.
Shit, I'm a tool. I'm so sorry.
That's why it was in the chat box.
He's not the only one that knows about that tool, though. Could have heard it from somewhere else.
Anyway, all right, so let's look at.
Can you guys see Hytham's window?
Now, can you see it?
It disappeared again.
It's gone.
No,
Did it just? Oh, it's because I know. Hang on one second, gentlemen.
there's some guy on a motorcycle. Is that you, Hytham, on the bike?
Yeah, I raced actually. Well, I raced. That would be more appropriate.
Still have all your kneecaps?
Yeah, I'm just missing part of my forearm. I left it on the track somewhere. So I've got nice road rash melted right through my leathers and my armor right into my arm. Okay, so we were looking at Mike's image before we started getting sidetracked completely. So let's see. Oh, I already had applied it. So what I ended up doing was, because what we want to focus on next is there's still a lot of nice background signal, so that's the stuff that we want to bring out. So this is where my old tutorial about dust extraction comes into play. And we can do that here. So what I did was I just created the initial mask. Initial mask here. Let's see. Two. That. Whoops. And we'll open up morphological transformation. Because if we're looking at this mask, have a look at it here. Oops, let's invert it really quick. It doesn't give us a very good profile. Like, we could probably extend the mask ever so slightly, just a little bit larger, just so we cover more of the area. So, like I said, we could do it one of two ways. We can just adjust it here by the large scale, but sometimes you don't have the same, I shouldn't say sometimes, you don't have the same control as you would here if you were using, like, say, dilation. And we can do this, set it to a round structure, and kill that mask, sorry. Round structure, let's set the size here to about a 13. And let's apply it to just this area here, make sure it's a good size.
Are you rounding the
Yes.
star mask?
Yeah, absolutely, because if you set it to diamond, watch what happens. They're now diamonds. So you got to create. So you got to when you're setting your here. This is part of your structuring element, or this is the kernel structure that you want to use, because you do get diamond elements. If you take a look at my setup, it does produce some diamond-shaped stars in the smaller areas. So you can create masks that look like diamonds that will match the profile of your star. But Mike's stars are all nice and round, so we would create a round structure here, like so. But we still have some. So what we can do is. No, that's good. We'll just leave it like that. I can make the adjustment afterwards. Apply this. And we'll open up Pixel Math here. SM plus SMC, rescale the result, create a new image. Oh, whoops. R. So combine the best of both masks. That's okay, we need to add a convolution to that because it's pretty harsh, extremely harsh, in fact.
You're combining two masks?
Yeah. So what you're doing is you're adding the result from here and the result to here. So what we've done is we've taken the hardness from this image and then the dilation from here and created into this result here. But as you can see, if you look at the inside of the image, see how harsh this is? You got a really, really hard interior with a really light exterior. So you have more control over the star mask by playing with it in this manner. So,
and that's pixel math combined?
Yeah, you just use an additive function. You can add the two together. And so we open this up, and then you can make adjustments here. So take the shape up quite a bit. Standard deviation as well. So you can see the profile here is what I use, and then just take a look at the image in here to get a nicer little structure. So you make just slight adjustments. Before and after, before, after. Apply that to the result, and I applied that to the preview. That was smart.
So how come you don't really have to do this with your setup anymore because you understand what your star shapes are?
Well, not necessarily, because it's going to be dependent upon the area of the sky that you're imaging, right? So depending on the area of the sky you're imaging, you're going to have a high density of stars or a lower density of stars. So if I'm shooting in the Milky Way, like I did with my Heart and Soul Nebula, yeah, it sucked because it's just a pure star field. So for that, every image is going to be treated differently. So you never know until you actually look at the image and try to develop
sure,
a proper mask for it. Whoops. Let's delete. Yeah.
Mike, what's your sampling rate? Is that what they call it? Sampling rate with your system? I don't know the focal length and then the pixel size.
It's 530. Yeah, it's 3.5 arc seconds per pixel.
3.5. That's
Yeah,
Mike's?
Mine or Mike's?
Mike's. I know you're
0.86.
3.5.
Yeah, Mike's is 0.86.
0.86. So he's right around perfect sampling, especially for new skies.
With good seeing.
Yeah, with good seeing.
I never had that. I did a couple times. I had it. I was like, oh, look how round my stars are.
I did once when I was set up for visual, and I didn't get to take advantage of it for imaging, but I got a good view through the telescope.
All right, let's do this here. Again, previews are our best friend. And there we go. That might be pushing it. So what we're doing here is we're just reducing the size of the star. So I'm just adding a morphological transformation. So you can see here the before and the after. So this is the after. Here's the before and the after. The before and the after. What it did to the stars, right? It reduced the brightness significantly. And that's what we want. So we can apply, before I do that though, for original, make sure we have an original.
Is this mask going to come in handy later when you go to like add color or saturate color to your stars or something, or is this?
Yeah, you can definitely use it because if it's the right size, if it's the right size. I was wondering
if it's a different mask required for this function than it would be to increase the color in your stars.
No, you could use it. You could absolutely use it if you wanted to.
What we're trying to do here is where I kind of blew the image a little, is I was trying to bring out all of the background dust. And so I was trying to make a proper star mask to put over it so I could stretch the faint background dust without blowing out my stars. And since I didn't make my mask correctly, and now I understand why though, because I would never have this much patience to go through and play for that long.
Yeah, that's mine. It's funny because I'm a super impatient person, but when it comes to experimenting, I'll sit here and play and look, observe, note the changes, try the next setting. Like, oh, I get it. When I made this changes, I can see, or made this specific change, I can understand what the next one's going to do.
If you look at my second image, I can see exactly now one of the things I did wrong. I did 2 morphs on it, and I've got star halos like that.
Yeah. Yeah, with this one, what we can do here is, so I started developing a new part of the technique because I was using Rogelio's method, and one of the things that I didn't like, or Rogelio, I should say, I'm sorry, one of the things that I didn't like was I was losing a lot of the detail in the smaller scale structure, so I started creating new masks, star masks, to apply as I did my morphological transformations against them. So, and that could be, just my rookie mistake and nothing against Rogelio by any means.
It seems pretty bizarre at this point. I mean, the stars are going to get brighter at some point, though, right?
Well, what this does is it allows you, so think of this like JP Matsuvainio, is it Matsuvainio or Matsuvainano? I think it's Matsuvainio. JP, Astro Anarchy. JP, he uses a tone mapping technique, and this is similar to that of the tone mapping technique, except it's done in pi. So basically what you do is you just separate your star structure, so your stellar structures, from that of your nebulosity, so you can focus on brightening up your nebulosity areas instead. And then what you do is you just combine the images back together again at the end. And did I? There we go. Oh, yuck. What happened?
You lost it.
Screen.
I think he's saying yuck to the mask.
Yeah, I'm saying yuck to the mask. Did it come back for you guys, or did you guys lose the screen?
Still lost it.
Okay.
We saw it for a half a second.
He minimized it real quick so none of you could see how poor that mask was.
Okay.
Circles. That's great.
What the heck?
It's like the cords were missing from the mask or something.
What the heck? Why did it do that? Let's see.
It's the noise profile.
Oh my gosh, I've never seen it do that before. Alright, nope. That's not going to happen. Let's try that again.
Mike, how much time do you have on the RGB components of this?
I think I've got 15 frames of 900, 14 or 15 on each of them.
Wow.
And do you bin or no?
No.
Seems nobody's
Mr.
binning.
Crawford is taught, and both Ken Crawford and Don Goldman told me there's no reason to. I mean that there's some, probably because I was using a refractor mostly too, because he said that in a refractor especially there is detail in the RGB data. that you somewhat sacrifice. So I don't know. But then when I went to CCD stat class, Adam Block was binning all of his color.
Hmm.
So I don't know what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, I was getting what looked like blooming. They say it was horizontal register something in my STF, so I haven't been binning just because it doesn't work for me. But
Yeah,
I
Ken
like,
will tell you don't bin.
yeah, I like to think it's not necessarily helpful. I mean, it might save you a little bit of time, I guess, but I don't know. You're losing resolution in the RGB, so
Yeah, then Hallis will tell you that you can blur your RGB and get all your detail from your luminance. So that then it begs to differ of, are you patient enough to get all the luminance you need?
right, exactly, exactly. And it seems to me it can't hurt to maintain some detail in RGB. I know they say our eyes just aren't sensitive to it, but still, they may not be sensitive to it 100%, 0%, but there might be somewhere in between that they are. Yes.
I like to think signal is signal.
Well, it's got to make a difference at full resolution, right? I mean, if you're gonna blow the image up and look at it, surely binning does make a difference.
Well, no, they're saying that you're going to get all of your detail and contrast from your luminance, and therefore, even if the color is blurred a couple of pixels, it doesn't matter.
Oh, right, only binning the color, right?
Yes.
Yeah, never bin luminance. So I think it's just a personal choice. You get into those philosophical discussions, and I don't know. I've seen guys take a 6-inch or 8-inch ARTC, that's kind of a junk scope, and make absolutely amazing images out of them. So, Keller likes to say in his presentations now, it's the pilot, not the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that statement, because as you progress in processing, you can take marginal data, and if you know how to fix it, you can get some pretty good stuff out of it. So it's not all about equipment, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And Hytham's doing some good work on that. I saw him flip between them, and it. So are you attempting to completely remove the stars right now, Hytham?
No, not entirely. What I'm trying to do is just dim them as much as possible. So this mask here is driving me nuts. But it's working for the purpose that I want. What I can do, yeah, I could definitely fix a little bit more, but like you can see the differences here between. Oh, whoops. This is where we started, and this is where we are.
What a difference.
Yeah,
It's pretty amazing.
So.
And that all is
Huge
coming
difference.
from the mask, right? Because
Yeah, and this is all just making. It's really simple. I'm sorry if I'm starting to speak a little bit lower. My girlfriend's got an early morning meeting, and she's so not happy with me right now. Our loft echoes through the whole house. So because one of the things that I didn't like about the images we were going through was that you start losing a lot of this really fine, smaller scale detail, and it starts to blur. And as you see it later on in the images, when I recombine, I can't reconstruct all the small scale structures that I've lost. So I create masks that are in between and then apply the multi-scale median only to the stars that are visible. So it's just a matter of trying to create the right star mask. So that's what I was doing here by taking a look at this. So what I ended up doing was I applied multi-scale median transformation here, and I did 2 iterations on layer 4, and I did only 1 on layer 5. So what we can do is, just so you guys show you, so I can do another one. And you can see the differences, though I've already applied it. You can see, here's the before and the, here, I'm a tool. So there's the before, and there's the after. So you can see how much more of a difference it made. If you take a look at a lot of the small scale structures are gone. And we wanted to include these. It's just a matter of making sure that I create the mask correctly. So I can do this. Let's take this down a little bit better. And so let's close that out. And what I'll do is I'll start here again. And do So that way I'll I'll create the mask. Like I experiment with much smaller previews to get an idea of what I want exactly, so that way it runs through it quicker. So we did include some of the other stars, but I'm still missing some of them, so I'll bump this up again. 8, maybe 9 is really pushing it. Who cares? We'll just do 9. Yeah, it always amazes me when I watch the Pi guys do this stuff. I'm like, how the hell do you guys have this memorized? I gotta look at every image and practice, experiment. Nope, that's not exactly what I want. Yep, that's close. And these guys, at least they give me the illusion of they do it right the first time. Yeah, it's starting to come through a little bit. All right. 11. And if it starts going a little too high, I'll do that. Heyo. I don't like that. I ended up clipping out some of the stars that I wanted. Just bump it up and just leave it the way it was. Yeah, I'm always so surprised. Like, I know masks better than I do how to color calibrate or neutralize the background. Suck at it. So if someone wants to teach me that, I'm definitely willing to. Okay, that's some of the stuff, but that's okay. So we'll stick with this one. Let's do it this way here. Apply the first iteration. So you can see the differences already. So there's the before, after, and then apply another one. I tend to do 2 to 3 of these. So lose some of the finer detail in there. So let's do this instead. Okay. Where'd that go? Right up here. So just for the sake of time, and we're not processing an entirely large image, I'll leave you up here. This I'm going to need. Close that out. Now what we want to do is, so we can go even one step further with this one here. We can still reduce it even further. So if you wanted to, you can go back in, open up your multi-scale median transformation, and I just did this the other day and it seemed to work really well. Re-enable all of these with the exception of layer 1. Focus on a much smaller area. And what the? Oh, Hytham, you genius. Forgot I was working in a preview window. Yeah, that just helped move a lot of the noise, so that's okay. Looks like we won't need to do it with this particular image. So here, what you can do is, if you want to reduce the stars even further in this image, you can then use a morphological transformation, and you can either apply an erosion against the image if you wanted to, or you could do this here without the mask. Not overly keen on that. But here, let's just pretend this is the final image, and then we can start enhancing the dust. So there is a particular pixel math equation that I like to use. It's like an exponential transformation. So where's pixel math? Here. Set the rescale result. So we do a 1 minus bracket 1 minus cosine t squared. So create a brand new image. So you can see how much brighter the dust became between the two.
Wow.
So that is, of course, this is not exactly the way you'd want to do it. But it just gives you a good idea, because what we wanted to do was, because we wanted to remove the stars. I didn't do a very good job of removing all the stars. This is such a piss poor job. But as you can see, like what it did here between the two, you can see all this background signal. Look how much brighter it is. Now there's a way of doing it. So one of the things we could have easily done, and this is, oh man, I did it again. Did I close that mask? I did, didn't I? So let's open up this star mask. Let's create it really quickly. And here's a way to prevent the bloating of the stars. So remember our mask we were using to keep the stars open? Well, you can use the same star mask now to block them, or you can recreate a brand new one to make it smoother, because you'll see the artifacts get introduced now. But this is just for the sake of... So we're blocking out the brighter areas. So, because this mask is not the greatest, but let's close that. Apply that pixel math equation here. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And there we go. So we blocked out some of the brighter stars so they don't, but we've introduced some halos, but it's all comes down to how you create your star mask. It's not the greatest, but it's not the worst either. But then if we wanted to, what we can do here is, yeah, and this is just the exponential transform. So what you can do here further is, so the next step is you could also do something like simple histogram transformation if you wanted to against it. Let's close these windows out so we can focus on this. And you'll notice that you have a lot of room. This one's not too much. I don't want to clip too much. I don't want to overbloat. So you could do something like that. And then, my favorite tool in the whole world, local histogram equalization. So this is going to be a really ugly first step, but just want to show you guys what it can do.
Hey, what does that larger radius do for you?
Okay, let's see here. Sorry, what was the question?
I asked what the larger radius did for you.
Oh, this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this just gives you an idea of the radius. So it's a measurement of radius in pixels that the process should be applied to around areas of contrast. So the higher you go, the less intrusive it's going to be on the image as a whole. See, there's way too much noise here, so let's bring this down a bit. This is so a half-assed way of processing. So before, why is it so slow this time? This image is not even that large. That's so funny. The preview took a lot longer than the actual application. But here's the before and after. Before, after. I'm not sure if you guys can see the difference.
Yeah, it's pretty noticeable.
Yeah, so it gives you a little bit more contrast. So it allows that the higher areas of signal to stand out more than the lower areas of signal, but it also brightens them up at the same time. I'm definitely going to work on this image with more patience.
Hytham, I gotta ask, the exponential equation you put into pixel math.
Yes, this one right here.
Yeah, you may not be able to explain that.
Yeah, I can definitely do it. So we can cover this really quickly. But basically, the entire premise of this equation is to make the darker areas darker and the brighter areas brighter. So as you can see what it did here between the two, Before we apply, that's not the wrong one. I'm sorry, that's not the right one. There's some more one. All right, sorry. So what we'll do is I'll show you what it does exactly. So we could break this equation down into multiple parts. So we know what the 1 did, right? Remember I explained this to you guys before? I'm not sure if I have. Well, we'll pretend I didn't. So 1, when applied to the image, means give me all the white pixels. 0 means, what do you think the 0 means? Anyone want to take a guess?
All black.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so all black. So if we start breaking the equation down, we know what $t is, right? $t is this current, whoa, what the heck did I do? It's the image itself. Not that big of a deal. So if we were to break this image down 1 minus $t, so let's break it down 1 bit at a time. What do you think the result is going to be? What would you expect? So we're taking the white point and we're subtracting it from the what? The target image. So what do you think the image would look like if I were to apply this equation to this here? What would you expect?
Inverted.
There you go. So that's what we do. Now what you do is, now you think about what is happening here. So we're taking 2 of these images and we're squaring them. And then applying it to here.
Are you using the inverse square law on your image?
How so?
You just said the squared and we're inverting it.
Oh, yeah, so you can see here what we've done. So now we've taken the image and we've squared it. So this is the resulting image that we get. So you can see the lower laying of signal has now come to the forefront. But of course, there's one last step to all of this. We want to subtract the white from all of that. So by doing so, we end up doing 1 minus that result. This, and we get that. So that's all it really does. So you're just subtracting the white point, you're squaring it, then you're subtracting the white point again from that final image to create this. So from the resulting set, because we all know BEDMAS, right? Standard rules in mathematics of following order of operations. Everything within the bracket's going to be completed first. So the first step we do is we do what? We remove this. So we subtract the white point from the target image, then we square it. So we've completed what has happened within the brackets first, and then we take the result of this part of the equation, and then further subtract it here with 1 from the white point. So that's all it means. Make the stuff brighter. as layman as it gets.
That's amazing.
Very simple, right? So here's the tool that you can use as well. So there is, and I learned this from the Pixel Math documentation before they stripped it off their website. It's, oh, I don't have it yet. But the other way you can do it, here's another neat little trick, exponential transformation. So let's take this image, do that. Look at that. So there's the before and the after. And I haven't done any. This is just straight out. So using the standard masks and using these utilities. So the great thing about Pixel Math is that you have far more control than this little slider deal, right? You can expand on this far more than what I've shown here. I can spend the next 2 hours talking about it, and I won't. But you can make adjustments here. So you can see it just by making this slider live. You can see what we can do to the image. Again, if I had done a proper mask, and I'm definitely going to do this, Mike, that properly, and I will end up just sending it to you with all the steps that I did, or even the exact icons that I used, because this is such an awesome image to play with. But you can immediately see all the dust in the background and the finer detail in the structure all coming out. So you create proper masks, and you can easily bring this out if you wanted to. The other trick that you can do is, if you want to just highlight the foreground and not necessarily the background so much, you can create a whole new, you can create 2 different masks, a luminance mask and a star mask, and then combine the two together to block out the stars like I showed you guys last week as well. That's one way of doing it. Then you can just highlight the signal so you can create more contrast in the foreground to the background. So you can create two different images if you wanted to. One highlighting the lighter detail in the background, and then one highlighting the foreground detail to get it to stand out more. Then you could take it into Photoshop and layer it in, and then layer up those two areas if you want to, or brush them in. And then you've got your foreground object standing out if you wanted to, with the nicer signal, you know, also far above the sky background, and but without dominating the image, so it's taken away from VDB 141 here in the image, so it remains the central focal point.
And can I ask a quick question? So when you layer your stars back in to make them look
normal,
yeah, normal.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss part of that process?
Well, it was me jumping through it. So what you want to do typically, so if you go back to here.
Math? Or is that something else?
No, it's pixel math. Pixel math 100%. So in this particular image, so I'll show you guys really quick, because I was trying to be pedantic, and this is the worst time to be pedantic about stuff like this. But let me see. Oh, whoops, where'd it go? Oh, I had the old processes open. That's why. So like that. So. And I'll show you how you can preserve it this way. I have a better way of doing it, but see how the stars have been eliminated in this result? Get rid of that out of the way. But you guys can see this image, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And you can see how a lot of the stars are gone. But if I zoom in, you can see how smooth it is, right? Because I've disabled the first 5 layers, so I've lost a lot of the detail in here. But a way to regain the detail, again, is through pixel math. So you go to pixel math, right there. And this is why I separated this image out, because this is going to retain all of our original structure, the small scale features. And if I expand this, let's do a side-by-side comparison. So you can see how much more detail is in here. You can see the finer wispier
Is that
dust.
the original? Is that the original stretch?
Yeah. Yep. This is just the basic stretch on the image.
Like without a star mask, is that right?
This one was with star masks.
Right, but not the extensive star
Yes.
mask. Okay.
So then over here, so what we want to do is, before we go ahead and process this further, we want to extract the small scale detail. So you just do this. You go O minus lum. Take this, apply it, and here's our small scale details preserved here in this image. So if I were to zoom in, apply it here, you can see the small scale detail here in the image. So what you can do in this here, you can separate, so it's multi-scale processing, essentially. And this is a trick that dates back to, I think, 2003, 2004 with one of the guys on the Pi team. Vincent Paris, he's the original one that developed this whole thing. So that's one way of preservation. And then from here, you can apply that pixel math equation that I showed you to that image. Oops. So go back to here, or you can use exponential transformation. Where'd it go? Hytham does not know American alphabet. What the hell's wrong with me? Same one in Canada. Am I blind? Oh, I did lose it. That's why. And that's kind of gross, so you don't want it like that. So before, after, you can see how much more dust popped up. So you can do that, apply the exponential transformation, or you could do like I showed in pixel math, like this. Okay. Little contrasty, a little too dark, but you can make adjustments to that by using curves or histogram or That is very much exaggerated. Oh, I don't want to clip. So before and after.
Mm-hmm.
Apply to that image. Again, this is not the greatest, guys, just because I'm going through it quickly. But then if you wanted to combine it back again, why did I close PixelMath? I always bloody do that. PixelMath, got to reopen that back up again. And it's just a matter of doing this again. So we just go, SMR3 plus res. Create. Rush through it. Oh. And here we go. So, yeah, there you go. That's the new resulting image. Stars are in check, kind of. But the background detail and the dust is really out there now.
That's
It's entirely
amazing.
whole new other image. But it's just a matter of getting your masks right. Like we did rush through this incredibly quickly. You could do this way better. That the preservation of the small scale structure is even better than this. And that was just me screwing up the mask. So it's just a matter of me getting the right mask in place. We can remove the stars completely, preserve the detail 100% without affecting it. So I don't have to do an extraction like this. But like one of the other things you could have done is you could apply a mask here on the background and on the stars. And that way you could have focused on this signal in here. So you can apply at-true wavelets if you wanted to with a noise reduction technique. So you could have done like at-true wavelets. I'll just show you here rather than just talking about it. So you could use at-true wavelets here and then use either K-sigma noise thresholding, or you could apply the noise reduction as you apply it to the bias depending on the layer that you want to. So you can sharpen and do a noise reduction at the same time. So that's one of the things you could have done to the small scale detail as an example. But yeah, there's where did the original go? I have no idea where I put the original. There it is.
What a difference.
So there and there. So before on the left and then after on the right. So I don't know, Mike, if this helps you at all. If, like I said, I'm going to take more time doing this just because I felt rushed on here. I didn't want to chew up everyone's time and kill the video stream through some of the more intensive processes that I'll have to run.
Well, that's the result I'm looking for.
Because we can fix the stars for sure. I'm not impressed with the stars. Like we did a good job of controlling the stars, but I'm not happy with it entirely. But it's still pretty good. And we've done no noise reduction on this image at all. It doesn't need it. It's actually really.
All right, now I'm going to show you something that'll make you sick, though.
Oh no! Is it going to be Jimmy's image?
No, actually, when he was comparing the two, he liked mine better. But this is going to be, I'll post over on the side. This is what he did in 15 minutes.
Did you post the link to our chat?
No.
All right. Oh, I see.
There it is.
I can tell you how to do color calibration and background neutralization. That's easy.
Yeah, I have the hard time with that. When I first started learning it, it was easy. But as I started learning other stuff, I started butchering it. I can't even do it anymore. It's so dumb.
So Hytham, in
Wow.
the second, in this the image where you were bringing out the larger scale structure, the dimmer dust,
Here.
as you were going, I was noticing that the stars were getting uglier and uglier and uglier. But by combining it back, it really didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's just a matter of, so the first few steps are the most critical that I just whipped through way too quickly, and that's a matter of just reducing the stars altogether. So even though we lost a lot of the detail in the image itself, you're going to regain that detail here. Now if you take a look at JP's tone mapping technique, it follows an identical path. He just basically took what was developed by Vicente Peris, and he applied it to a tone mapping technique that can be used in Photoshop. So he goes through, he removes all the stars, and he keeps his original image, and he performs a subtraction within Photoshop itself to get his stars back and some of the other lower scale detail that may have been missing. And that's exactly what we did here. So by separating it out, you're able to bring it back. Now some people say when you're doing the recombination of those images, so when I had PixelMath open, I only did the addition of my, the small scale, the large scale, but other people say you have to do this as well. Whoops. Add the original in. So if I were to do that, let's do this. Let's see what kind of a difference it makes. So the one on the right is mine without including the original image. The one on the left includes the original image as a part of the equation. I don't understand why. I don't like it. You might be able to regain more detail, but I prefer the one on the right a little bit more because I like bringing out the really faint stuff.
Okay, great.
That's just me. It's all subjective. It's art. You like what you like. But this has got awesome data in it. I'm going to want to play with it because now it's a challenge that Jimmy did his in 15 minutes, and I'm not happy.
Now it's a speed challenge.
Yeah, now I'm just pissed off. So screw you, Mike.
He didn't leave it. He didn't take it all the way. And actually, the data you have, I added a lot more to it.
Mm-hmm.
The one he did there was original, and I had some bad red frames in it.
Oh, okay.
A couple other things, so I cleaned it up, and the masters you have are better than what he had to work with.
Gotcha.
And I added another 4 hours of luminance. So, but the point is just how fast when he just whipped through that. He was bored at home, and he said, "Let me take a look at it. Send me them," and just boom, boom, boom. I mean, just. And I was watching him last night or yesterday afternoon. He was trying to show me how he was expanding the luminance, and he didn't go nearly as detailed as what you did. I mean, he was flying through it really quick on the screen share, and even that, he like I said, I don't want to. There's just certain things that you have natural talents for, and he can just look, and where I'm blind and I send something, and can't you see how there's too much green in that? No.
I rely on the histogram for that. Sometimes I can see it, sometimes I don't. I'll look at the histogram and try to get an idea. I still need more practice. But,
or the biggest one I have is it's too cyan. I get that all the time.
I'm still learning all the color palettes in Photoshop and understanding by adjusting hue and saturation and balance and all that.
Well, selective color is the one you want to learn.
I've been playing with that as much as I can. Yeah. And match color?
No, selective color is the best. The ability to manipulate things that are a little off, because rather than making large-scale changes for the most part, it's very controllable for just doing a slight rebalance in different areas. I've even used it for if I've got a gradient that I can't seem to get out very well any other way. But I've become a big fan of selective color.
I like Lightroom's color. They have more colors to play with in Lightroom. If you've ever carried your TIFF into Lightroom to adjust the colors, I found that to be pretty effective as well.
He does that. I don't. I think I have Lightroom as part of the Photoshop 6 package, but I've never even opened it.
It's awesome. I think you'll like the color correction in that, or at least the color adjustment, I should say, rather than correction. Because I played with it like a couple times on some of my images, and they have more colors to select from than Photoshop selective color does.
Right. Well, that's where I get. Sometimes I'm like, I got to look at this. I still have a printout of a Hallis article from in Astronomy magazine where he shows the color chart and the opposites. So if you want to reduce the green, you bring up the magenta, and with the color wheels. And so I'm the same way. It's hard for me to remember all that. Maybe I just like to be able to say, just reduce this only. But in normal Photoshop, if you're using just regular color adjustment, you've got to increase one to decrease the other unless you go into curves.
Mm-hmm.
And you're still really just doing the opposite.
I do a lot of that in curves. I end up putting a bunch of lock points down and then just tapping down or up. A little bit less blue, a little bit more blue, a little bit less red, a little bit more red. But I have to look into more selective methods.
You know how to balance your background easily in Photoshop?
I can balance a background pretty well. I actually prefer the way PixInsight does it. I don't know why. Well, I don't know if I like that the PixInsight workflow with Photoshop. I end up just clicking around in the background until it looks right, and then just correcting a little bit. But PixInsight has done a better job on getting my stars the right colors.
Yeah, I always use color calibration in it, so I don't have a problem with that. But sometimes I'll still come over with, especially in a large nebulosity field where I'm too dominant in the background in a color that shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the bad thing about the histogram. Sometimes you've got a lot of stuff in the background you're not seeing, and it throws the histogram off.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I was trying to do, because you post that on top of the RGB, and all of a sudden, all of that dust in the background is going to pop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can, like I said, we can do such a better job. Like once I get the proper masks built out and get everything reduced, I'll just give you the icons once I get it all figured out, Mike, so you can see what I had done.
Maybe we could post it to the channel or post a link to the final image as well, just to show people in large scale and large resolution what.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's kind of funny because I whined to Ken today. I said, he was talking about stretching it further, and I said, yeah, but then all the mistakes happen, or you see all the mistakes, and he goes, mask them out. Oh, okay.
Hey, Hyphen Man, appreciate you staying on later. Tell your girlfriend we're sorry.
Yeah, I heard her. Like, I thought I heard her yell. I wasn't sure if it was her or someone else. So it was kind of funny. She walks out and just gave me a death glare. She walked on by, and she came back up and she pointed at me, and she's holding out her earplugs like, thanks.
Your evil eye.
Yeah, she's got to get up at 7 a.m. for a meeting.
Evil monkey from Family Guy. I can see.
She is so not happy with me right now. I'm completely in the doghouse. That's okay.
Yeah, I wish you hadn't done such a crappy job on this. Really, it's pretty amazing how much.
It's actually starting to make me sick to my stomach looking at it.
That's right. It's really pretty amazing, man. You've really got a handle on PixInsight, dude. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. My biggest issue is color. I can't seem to get color right. Like I've got luminance, like grayscale stuff to me I find so bloody easy. I just can't do color. I hate it. Like getting color calibration and background neutralization is definitely my weakest point. Sometimes I'm lucky with the image and it turns out exactly the way it should, but if I go back and redo it, nope. Not even
What's
close.
where you're taking the samples from?
Because a lot of my images are really dusty areas. So for me, one of the tricks that I learned from the Pi guys was that if you're doing a background neutralization, and here's an example. Like this image is a good example. Like where would I do a background neutralization in this if it's an RGB image?
You got to go by your color readings.
So here, let's do this, since we're all here together. No? Nothing? Why isn't it? Oh, you son of a gun.
You didn't save it.
Yeah, I thought I had. There we go. Oh.
I was gonna warn you.
Yeah. I wish you had. You're fired. No, it's alright, dude.
I hope you got the right frame. Or started with the right frame.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm
I
gonna have
started
to.
with the red frame.
I think the blue one might be the one that needs it the most. No, the green one. The red, actually. Let's go over there instead. Here.
All right, thanks, guys. Look, I'm going to turn into a pumpkin, so I got to go. But
Have a good one.
appreciate it, and see you next week.
Alright, see you, man. Okay, I've cropped out a lot of the image, but that's okay. Alright. And just for giggles, I'm just going to make sure I do, no, screw it. I'll do it after the fact. Now, when you guys do your combination, I guess this is a good question. Do you guys remove the gradients in the individual images first prior to? Because that seems to me that would be the right way of doing it.
It depends how bad the gradient is.
So let's just do the most careless gradient removal on the planet, ABE. That's just opinion for everyone out there listening. Purely opinion.
I always do AB on galaxies.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about using it when it comes to dusty images.
I'll use it on galaxies. As a matter of fact, sometimes I'll put all the images, each frame, in an image container, and then I'll apply ABE to it, to each frame, before I combine them.
Okay, let's do this.
So would you apply the same DBE or ABE process to all three channels?
No.
Like I said, it just depends. It depends on what I've got. But I'll open things up in blink, and if I see, as I'm flashing through in one color, I'm seeing a lot of more gradient frames because I had a little bit more moonlight or something in the way, then I may just do it with those. But if it's in a bunch of the channels, then yeah, I might do it to all of them.
Yeah, I've actually only done it on the combined RGB image. Oh, I shouldn't say I've only. I had some issues fully correcting the gradients when I did it on separate channels.
Somebody didn't make them the same size.
Yeah, I didn't. What the heck? How'd that happen? I applied the dynamic... Wait a minute.
Did you close the wrong image?
Let's see. Dynamic crop R. Look at that. I should be shit-canned. G and B. Oh, I suck at life. So let's go back to R. What was R like? Oh, Hytham. Yep. That's what I get for not paying attention. So let's do this here. Oh, no. Did not want to do that to the R. That was the actual only right one. That was the green, and now the blue. There we go. And just to be safe,
That didn't look right.
I'm just glad I don't drink. All right. Hugely exaggerated crop here.
That's what happens when the roof's closed half the time and you take the images over an entire month.
There we go. All right. There's nowhere they're different now. Yay. All right. Oops. All right. And we'll do... There's actually an easier way to do this in the process console to rename all the images to the correct one. I'll have to do another tutorial on those commands. That's another good one. And all right, now let's rotate the image, because it drives me nuts looking at an image when it looks upside down to me. All right, so for background neutralization, this is where I get confused. In an image like this, for background neutralization, what one of the Pi guys showed online was that you can use the dark area. Like if you... So I don't know if this is dark enough or it has to be much darker.
I don't agree with that, what he's saying there at all. The key is to look at your readings, and you shouldn't have more than 1/10 of a point difference in your readings as you scroll around for your sample areas.
So when we're looking down here,
when you go back up to your, you got to change your cursor again back so you can get your...
Oh. Yeah, how does, because I lost the little box that comes up.
You got it now? Oh, I don't know why. That should be there.
Yeah,
so you're not seeing your readings.
No, I've lost the readings. I don't know how or why it did it. They just disappeared on me when I upgraded it the one day.
That's where you're looking for your samples at.
And what are you looking for exactly? Because if I'm looking at the very bottom where it says RGB and I've got, the 10,000ths of a decimal point there, 0.0004 across the board.
Okay, so you've got it there. So that's a good neutral background area.
Right.
So you want all of those to be within one number of each other.
Oh, okay. So I can then use this as my sample if I wanted to for my preview.
You got it.
So something like, so if I wanted to scroll around like in here. So this is a nice neutral area then. So we can do like that.
Right. You got it.
And then, so that's one of the things one of the many things I don't know. So I'll use that region of interest from preview like that. And apply that.
Your reference image, did you do, I always select the preview.
Yeah, okay. So we can do this, go back. Just do it from here instead. Wonder if that's what I'm doing wrong. But results should be the same. Yeah, figured it'd be the same.
Okay. All right, so now leave that preview there.
Yep, and then bring up the color calibration.
Right.
Oops. Color calibration, and then get rid of that, disable that for now. Background interest, we can just say...
All right, so let's see. All right.
So now this is the fun part. So an image like this, do we go with structure detection to use the stars?
Yes.
Okay.
The only time you're going to not use structure detection is if you have a galaxy in which
Yes.
case you're going to highlight the galaxy.
And you can use that as your white reference for your white pixels.
You got it.
So one of the other images, what I found interesting was when Juan did it. I think that's it. Yeah, Juan, one of the developers in PixInsight. What he did was he was using Rho Ophiuchi as his example. And one of the things that he said was you can use the image as a whole, so you could disable the structure detection and just use the reference image, leave it as your target image. Because if the image contains a lot of reflection as well as emission nebulosity, you can use that as a part of your color calibration routine. And
actually, if you
sometimes I use
just
that.
check structure detection right now, it will just pick the stars in the entire image.
Oh, okay. So rather than selecting regions and then selecting an aggregate.
Yeah, you can,
Okay.
right now you can just, it'll use every star in the image.
Oh, one of the things I was not doing, this is foolish on my part, was screen transfer function. Oops. Oh my God, what am I doing? There we go. Oh, all right. Well, that wasn't hard. What the heck have I been doing? I think I'm just on crack. I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, that, so, and then, like I said, the only difference is, now the only time I wouldn't do that is use the entire image,
Yeah.
is if, like, let's say I've got a very heavy H2 region that's so red dominant that it's going to bleed over and it'll screw it up. In that case, I'm going to try to pick a more neutral area, do a preview of just the stars and that, and go from there.
Ah. Yeah, see, that looks way better. Well, I was having like one heck of a time trying to get mine to.
Yeah, see how you're totally neutral in your background now?
Yep.
I see almost no variance in your histogram at all.
When you're talking about the channels here, how they're not coming misaligned.
Yep.
Yeah. Because that's the biggest problem I've had. Mine, you know, as an example, my blue might be like this.
Yeah.
And my images, I couldn't get the color right at all because they were just all over. Like, that's what my histograms are looking like, and it was pissing me off because I couldn't do anything with them. It was just
Now you know
absolutely
what to do.
useless. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's much better because I think I was getting lucky the first few times I did calibration, but then after that, when I started thinking about it, I was doing it all wrong, and it was driving me nuts.
Well, it's the complex things you understand.
My mind's always been like that. The basics I gloss over because I don't want it. I don't care about the basics. I just want to get to the nitty-gritty, high detail stuff. That's not good. Well, thank you for that tip. So now I'm going to go back and do my stuff later, but I want to work on yours first. Yours looks way more fun.
All right, well, have fun. It was a wonderful evening. Past my bedtime.
Yeah, I should. I've got a nice early morning meeting as well, but I'm sure I'll be up till at least 2 a.m. playing. So
it's good to be young.
Hey, I'm
Most
37
nights that's
in a
when I
few
go to
months.
work.
I'll be 37 in a few months. So I'm not that young.
I got a kid that old.
Oh, never mind. Well, gentlemen, it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been nice. We have Scott Rosen next week, so
Awesome.
if anyone knows of anyone that's having difficulties getting into the sessions, we're doing a test session tomorrow. Just have them contact us somehow so that we can get them hooked up. I think at this point everyone's getting in. We actually had 9 people today at one point, which was one under our max. So we'll see what happens. We might end up having to send people to YouTube rather than come into the live. So we'll see.
Cool.
But guys, I'm going to end the broadcast.